What's up everyone, it's Magic here, and I have just realized that it was exactly 1 year ago today that I got my hands on a Sony A7IV. It was like a month before the launch, so I was one of the first people in Europe to got it. And 2 days after I got in my hands, we went to this amazing wedding shoot in Portugal, Madeira, to make this like a promo video for the European launch of this camera. And then I myself made a bunch of videos on this channel, like breaking down different things about Sony A7IV, including like a full review for wedding photographers and like other stuff, so you can watch the playlist here. But today, for like the 1 year anniversary of my journey with Sony A7IV, I'm gonna actually take a look with you at the real life photos. So not like test photos, not like style shoot photos, like a real life wedding photos, as I have shot hundreds of thousands of them like in the past 12 months with A7IV. So every single wedding I've shot this year was using dual camera system, one Sony A7IV, two Sony A7IVs. And I'll start with this. Sony A7IV RAW files are super easy to edit. So take a look at this. At first, when I actually got this camera, a year ago, I couldn't edit my RAWs. So my initial review, I didn't talk about editing at all. But like these files are amazing. You can actually move your sliders back and forth in Lightroom. So let's look at this image from the first wedding I've shot this year in January. So actually, the image looks like this, raw, in a raw version. You can see how underexposed like the lower part is, because I exposed for the highlights. I wanted to have the sunset and the clouds and everything. But look down here. If I push the exposure plus 3.7, it looks amazing. You can see all the details. There's like not a single point of any noise here. So it looks really, really good. So in the final image, I actually pushed the highlights down, pushed the shadows up, play around with it a bit, and then I applied my preset, Magic Cadabra preset, to get this look, and it's amazing. And one more photo from like the initial shoot I've shot in Madeira, one of my favorite photos from Madeira. So since I was using TIFF files back then, I couldn't edit it fully. Now this is like the final version of it. So again, look at the raw version, and then what I brought back from highlights, I pushed the shadows a little bit, brought down the highlights, and I got this amazing orange colors, and like the transitions in the colors are perfect. And actually, like, you can just move the sliders back and forth, even bringing up back these guys. It's still possible, with that file, even though it was like heavily underexposed, because I shot it in the intention of having the silhouettes here. So like the files are really amazing to edit. This was very hard when I was shooting this moment and they posed like in front of these windows. I was like, oh damn, I'm not gonna make it. This is impossible. This is impossible to shoot. But it's actually, this is the raw file. I didn't want it to like fully underexpose because I didn't know how good the raw files are yet. That was my first wedding. So I exposed, enough to keep, the highlights, and to be able to bring those shadows a little bit back. So amazing stuff. Again, couple more frames so you can just see that even backlit situations, you can still retain the levels in the highlights. So the dynamic range of Sony A7IV sensor is actually like in a practical situation is really amazing. It looks really great. Both, you can have highlights, you can have shadows. Here, that was the, like in this photo, I had another intention. So this is again the intention of having a silhouette. So I was like underexposing. So this was my raw. I was like slightly underexposing, but again, look at this file. You can still push the exposure up to get their faces if you want. So if you want to expose it like differently afterwards, so as soon as your file is like not too bad, like my initial exposure was here, so my exposure was calculated enough to be able to bring them up or to bring back the sky fully. I went with like bringing back the sky in this particular image. Just one last frame, just showing the capabilities of this. This like all of this is the ambient light. There's no artificial light. There's no off camera flash or anything like this. This is what it was initially. So again, I was exposing somewhat between, like, I didn't want to underexpose too much and I didn't want it like blow the highlights. So that was here, exposing for the sky. This is the final image after applying my Magic Cadabra preset and just playing around with the sliders. Next up, the ISO performance, like quite important too. And actually this is the only photo I found that has like the biggest ISO value, which is like a 20,000 ISO, which is crazy. And just look at the frame. If the photo is well exposed like this one, you don't have to be worried about the noise performance. Look at this. This looks really good. There's like, again, like I'll reset the image so you can see. So you can see that the image is like really properly exposed. It's not underexposed. If it would be underexposed and I would have to push the highlights, that could be a problem with the high ISO values. But if you are using like a higher ISO values with intention of, you know, exposing correctly, so not underexposing, but like maybe slightly even overexposing, then you don't have to worry about noise performance. Now let's talk about autofocus system. Autofocus system, which is great. It's like, it's said to be like almost the same autofocus system, which is in A1. We have real-time tracking autofocus, which gives you that like tracking of the subject. So look at this set of images. So I actually focus on her. So I use real-time tracking with the single point. You can actually, I have like the full video when I break down how I use the AF system in Sony A7 IV. It's the most popular video on this channel, and I have like daily comments about how great the video is. So if you don't know how to use autofocus in Sony A7 IV, make sure you watch that video. But here, so I focus on her, and autofocus was just like following her like this. Look at this, like every single photo, like her face is exactly in focus. She's coming from the edge of the frame to the middle of the frame, and bam, the kiss right in the middle, everything in focus. And like I have tons of examples like this of people like walking towards me. And look at this, like this photo shot with 51.2 at 1.2 of people walking towards me. So this is like my kind of a signature shot. I do a lot of these photos, so the focus was on her face and it's exactly in focus. Can you see that like her face is 100% in focus, even at 1.2 aperture. And again, I'll have like tons of these. This is example of 35-1.4 at 1.4, focused on her face this time. This is the 51.2 again at 1.2 during the first stance, focused on her face. And look at this, like there's this perfect sharpness, and like you'd never know with the first dance when is the final moment coming and what kind of final moment you would expect. So this is like the live, well, I have to move, I have to go down and just frame it so I can just focus on her face, and it works like a charm. So real-time tracking autofocus using a point. And here's the thing, I'm so confident about how good the Sony's A7 IV autofocus system is that I can use two cameras at once, not looking at one of them and focusing. So bear with me looking at this image, like what is happening here. So like this is the exit moment, so exit of the ceremony. I want to have two photos. I want to have horizontal photo shot with 35-1.4, so this like wider angle photo and horizontal, and I want to have a vertical photo with 51.2 at 1.2. So having the real-time tracking, I can first like just focus on their face, on one of their faces with my 51.2, go vertical like this, and then I put my second camera on top here. I actually use the claw here. So this is the claw grab. So I'm kind of taking photos with this finger and holding camera like this, while the second camera at 35-1.4 horizontal was like this, and I was just looking at the frame and I was like taking two photos at once, horizontal and vertical, 35 and a 50. And here it is. This is the 50. So this is the one I was shooting blind. I wasn't looking at the viewfinder, and I shot it at 1.2. I was that confident that I shot it at 1.2. This is how much I trust my Sony A7 IVs. Look at this, 100% in focus at 1.2. Couple exiting ceremony, walking towards me, and I'm shooting blind. And then the second one, 35. This one was at f2.0, but look at this. You see two photos from the same moment shot like this. Big brain here. And then I'll probably have even more examples of this moment when like people ask me often, how do you shoot like the exit when like people are throwing things at the couple and the focus sticks at their faces? So for me, it's as simple as like just real-time tracking, tracking on their face with eye autofocus. And then what I would suggest would be changing the autofocus sensitivity. It's in the menu 4, A7IV, autofocus sensitivity to 1, locked on. If you change it to lock on, like the autofocus will stick more to the initial subject you grab on. So if you're like, there's something getting in front of it, like in between you and the couple, let's say, or in between you and the subject that you're tracking, it will not change to that other thing. So here, this is the example number 1, 100% in focus. This is the example number 2. Let's wait for it to load, 100% in focus. There's a sample number 3, it's raining, so it's even worse. There's like a lot of stuff happening, 100% in focus. Then again, things like just floating around, 100% in focus. I have one more. This is from the first dance, also 100% in focus, even though it was like even more difficult scenario in this particular example. So the AF system is amazing, although it's not as good as A1. And like I used A1 and I know how good the AF system in A1 is. What's the difference then? Whatever Sony is claiming that Sony A1 does the autofocus and the exposure like calculation 240 times per second, like this is the difference. For sure, Sony A1, like you can feel it right away when you're just focusing with Sony A1, that it just like so quickly, you know, tracks the eye and possibly change to another subject if there's something happening. And it's outstanding. But how practical it is for weddings, like I haven't had a single situation shooting A7IV that I missed a moment because this autofocus was not as fast as it could be. Even though Sony A1 is faster, I don't know if I need it as much. I would like to have it. That would be nice to have it, just to have this feeling of having like the fastest of the fastest autofocus system. But I do remember missing shots, having this one crazy session in the summer. I was shooting a family session of like one of my past clients. They come back every year to take their kids' photos. And we were at the beach, like the boys were running and they were running super fast and I was running and using Sony A7IV. So when reviewing the photos and calling them, I could right away tell that there's more photos that are not in focus than what I'm used to. So in a wedding scenario, I never have like such a fast situation happening in front of me. Still, this is the photo during this shot. Session. Look at this, even though there's like tons of water coming, this is like a similar situation to what it is with like the throwing the confetti. So I managed to get like tons of amazing shots during this session. I don't have any regrets, but that was the moment I felt, oh, Sony A1 would be better in this particular session when I had these guys like running like crazy. So for kids photography, I do think you need A1 for that. And this is it actually. This is my real life, you know, experience shooting Sony A7IV for a year. I've shot 2 of them. Even though I had access to every single Sony camera there is, I didn't have an urge to change it and I loved shooting it. But I still get tons of questions from people. Should I go A7R4 or A7IV? Should I get A1 or A7IV? Or should I get A9 Mark II or A7IV? So here is like my process behind this. So what A7IV is not capable of, it is not capable of shooting amazing image using a silent shutter. So if you want to use a silent shutter, meaning electronic shutter, and you don't want to have any problems with the bending on rolling shutter, don't go with A7IV, go with A9 Mark II or A1, because these are the only cameras that are capable of doing this. So that's the first question. Do you need electronic shutter? Yes, no. If you don't need it, you can go A7IV. If you need it, you have to go A9 II or A1. Okay, then the second question, do you need video capabilities? If you don't need video capabilities, you can go A9 Mark II easily. So A9 Mark II will give you everything A7IV does in terms of photos. It might have like slightly less megapixels, 24, not 33, but still it will have amazing ISO performance, like everything I talked about here. So like a great dynamic range, great autofocus system, real-time tracking, tracking the eye, locking on, so on. A9 Mark II will have it all, but it will not have any of the video capabilities. So this is like another kind of a question. Do you need video or not? And the third question is like as simple as, do you need more megapixels or not? If you need a lot of megapixels, you can go A7R4. If you need a lot of megapixels and you need a silent shutter, you have to go A1. So it might be slightly complicated, but there's literally 3 questions that you need to ask yourself picking Sony camera for wedding photography now. Do you need megapixels? Do you need silent shutter? And do you need video? And like answering all of these 3 will just point you at the right direction. I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you watch my Sony A7 IV playlist. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I have amazing videos coming up this winter season. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Ciao.